Why isn't the word Trinity found in the Bible? Well, the statement I would make to someone who asks this, and it won't work, but here's what I would say. The word Trinity is not found in the Bible, but the concept of the Trinity is taught in the scriptures very much. And therefore the word comes from the concept. We learn the concept and we just find a word that helps describe the concept to summarize it. Now that's not going to satisfy them, but then I will like to ask them a question. And I say, do you believe God is omniscient? And they're going to say, yes, God's omniscient, which means he knows everything. So they say, yes, God's omniscient. And I ask, where is the word omniscient in the Bible? And they say, oh, I didn't realize it wasn't in there. Well, I said, do you believe God is omnipresent? And they go, yes, go up to heaven, you're there, to bed in the depths of the deep, you're there. Yes, but the word omnipresent isn't in the Bible. Why do you believe things that aren't in the Bible? To which now they will be the one telling you, well, the teaching of omnipresence and omniscience, it's in the Bible. We just have a word to describe the teaching. And I tell them, bingo, same with the Trinity.
Hey there, my friends. Stan Gray here with TRQ, The Right Questions, where we question just about everything we could think of regarding the Christian faith and the preconceived notions that we tend to be brought up with, especially those who are raised in this religion. Mike Winger is a very interesting character. I've heard a lot about him over the years, and almost every time I listen to him, I don't know, there's something about him that just kind of seems to be manipulative. I'm not sure. I mean, sometimes he tries to really lay it on thick and appear genuine, but other times, I don't know, he just seems to be kind of obfuscating somehow. And I think this video is an example of that. So let's go through it piece by piece and discuss all the issues that I have with this particular video. It's called "The Trinity," in quotations, is not in the Bible. And as you heard, that's he's giving his argument as far as painting a picture of some kind of extra biblical terms that people just commonly accept today. Most Christians commonly accept. So let's get into it.
Why isn't the word Trinity found in the Bible? Well, the statement I would make to someone who asks this, and it won't work.
Hedging his bets there. It won't work. I wonder if he's talking about it won't work for Christians who don't believe in the Trinity, or it won't work for, people like me who are complete skeptics and non-Christians, examining his thought process and his logical breakdown here. Who knows? Either way, it's definitely not working on me because I have been inoculated to a lot of these apologetic techniques and wordplay and little tricks of the trade.
But here's what I would say. The word Trinity is not found in the Bible, but the concept of the Trinity is taught in the scriptures very much. And therefore the word...
Okay, so most of these are New Testament verses that he's putting in here. So obviously the writers of the New Testament, many of whom were anonymous, believed that because of the fact that, okay, the Jewish Messiah is coming, right? The Jewish Messiah was supposed to be a king of Jewish descent, the line of David, that would rule in the physical realm, just like a normal governmental entity, very terrestrial, as far as I understand it. And a certain number of people in the time of Jesus believed that he would be that Messiah. And when he was executed, just like many other would-be messiahs of his time, there was a certain number of his followers who basically, they had no choice but to change the way that they saw everything in order to excuse the failure of Jesus to rise to the level of what they were expecting. This, so it's kind of seen as a virtue with Christianity nowadays, and what I was taught growing up by my fantastic and well-intentioned parents, the Jews were expecting this rich and extravagant man to come in and just save everyone and be their king and usher in a new age of prosperity for the Jewish people. But when Jesus came and he was humble, kind of pauper-like man, nothing really special physically. He wasn't rich. He was just born in a manger and humble beginnings and all this. It was seen as, hey, God flipped the script on them and sent this poor, average-looking man of no seeming significance. And that's the actual Messiah. Totally different than what they were expecting and what they were telling themselves was the plan of God as far as the destiny of his chosen people. But that man, Jesus, who I believe to some extent was a historical figure, although I also believe that there's some mythologizing and some legendary content that has just been interwoven into his character and his history. When that man died, just like what happens in a lot of cults today, like, hey, you know what? We have a cult leader. He's going to be ushering us into the next life. Oh, but then he dies. So, oh, well, you know what? Now he's our spiritual guide and father or something. They'll weave in whatever extra mythology that they need to be able to continue holding to the beliefs that they have. So I don't consider Matthew, 1 Corinthians, Romans to even be in the running for, a proof that the Trinity is in the Bible. It really is more Old Testament. And the more you look into it, the more you realize that the Old Testament, and even many scholars agree and have said this, including Christian scholars, there is no direct allusion to the Trinity or any kind of idea that God is multiple persons in the Old Testament at all. And we'll look at these two particular Old Testament verses that he's talking about, and you'll see how vague they are. And it's really a reach to say, hey, this is a foreshadowing of the Trinity, especially in Genesis 1:2-3. I think I know which one that is and what he's trying to say by citing that. But the Isaiah one is definitely something else to look at. I'll show you in a second. So I guess Mike Winger didn't expect his viewers to actually look into any of these verses. It's probably just more than enough for a bunch of verses to be flashed up on the screen, and people will just say, hey, well, look at all these verses. There must be a lot of proof in there. But when you read it, it seems like, I don't know if he was just throwing in some filler there or what, but he did cite Genesis chapter 1, verses 2-3. Those verses go as follows. Now the earth was formless and empty, darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. Okay, verse 3, I don't know, is he trying to say that the Spirit of God hovering over the waters, and then God saying something? Is he trying to say that, here's evidence that there's a Spirit of God, and then separately there's God, which I imagine would be God the Father? It's such a vague and non-specific reference. I'm shocked that he would even put that on there on the screen, as you saw earlier. And there it is right there, Genesis 1, 2-3. So let's go over to Isaiah 48:16. Come near to me and listen to this. From the first announcement, I have not spoken in secret. At the time it happens, I am there. And now the sovereign Lord has sent me, endowed with his Spirit. Okay. If you read that in any other normal, non-biased context, that does not indicate in any way to me, unless there's some weird Hebrew shenanigans that I'm not aware of, that doesn't indicate anything other than the Jewish conception of God, who is who they were writing about. And that is the belief of the people who were writing this at the time. The sovereign Lord has sent me endowed with his Spirit. How is that evidence or a reference to multiple persons being within one Godhead and all this much later Christian ideology? There's really weak references there, Mike. We could look into the New Testament verses, but it's really pointless for reasons that I already explained. So let's continue.
It comes from the concept. We learn the concept and we just...
Yeah, so case in point, Matthew 28. Matthew, what was it? Written, 40, 50, 60 years after Jesus died. And of course, we can't even be sure that that verse itself was even in the original manuscript. Matter of fact, I'm going to look that up right now. That's my gut feeling is that baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, I feel like that might be, there might be some contention around that verse. Let me look into it real quick. All right, so full transparency and long story short, the nature of this ending of Matthew 28:19 is kind of dubious at best. There are some arguments that it was present in original manuscripts in the Greek, and there are some people who believe it's a forgery. And too many articles for me to go through right now. Maybe I'll explore that a little bit more later. But like I said, I did have a gut feeling that there was something a little weird about this. That's a little too on the nose. The idea of contemporary Christians to the life of Christ, even if it was 50 or 60 years later, for them to be already conjuring some reasoning for why he must still be relevant, even though he was executed, definitely points to the idea that someone might have along the line created this framework to make it still make sense so that they wouldn't have to give up their beliefs. So let's continue.
Find a word that helps describe the concept to summarize it. Now, that's not going to satisfy them, but then I would like to ask them a question. And I say, do you
This is the part that it gets really interesting.
believe God is omniscient? And they're going to say, yes, God's omniscient, which means he knows everything. So they
Okay, is God omniscient? In the Bible, there are a few times where it is said that God knows everything. It's claimed that God knows everything without evidence and without any kind of logical framework to back that up. But more often than not, God acts as though he doesn't know everything. And as much as it is a just common belief and just everyone assumes and accepts the idea that God is omniscient, just think about this for a second. And this is all just off the top of my head. The Garden of Eden, when God finds out that Adam and Eve had eaten the fruit, number one, he asks them, what have they done? And I've heard people say, oh, well, he's doing that for the benefit of the reader of the Bible, the future reader, or for their benefit to make them experience the anxiety, I guess, of, oh man, we're about to get caught by God. But I mean, he's walking around and somehow doesn't seem to know, or at least the writers of Genesis didn't seem to think that he automatically knew exactly what they had done. And he has to ask them, and they tell him what they did. Not too long after that, when Cain, he's considering unaliving his younger brother because of jealousy or whatever, what have you. God comes up to him and says, hey, what's going on? What's up with you? And he has this little conversation in which God says, hey, sin is crouching at your door and you have to master it. You have to overcome it. I mean, what he doesn't say is, hey man, I know everything and I know that you're about to end the life of your precious, innocent younger brother. Don't do that. Like I'm here to convince you not to do that, or I'm here to stop you from doing that because this young man is innocent and I know what's about to happen to him. And, but instead I'm just going to act like I don't know and allow you to just work through your process of accomplishing that and getting rid of your younger brother. And then I'm going to curse you right after that. If he knew that, then, I would imagine, like, put yourself in that position. If you knew, even if there's people that you didn't even know or care about, there's a guy that's about to go and fatally attack his younger brother. And you know that this is about to happen. And you have everything, all the tools at your disposal to stop this from happening. But you just choose to go up to him and say, hey, man, I know bad things happen in the world and you got to avoid that. Don't do that, buddy, slugger. That's crazy to me to think that, God has no problem convincing people to do things that they, to change their ways. He'll even send plagues and famine to get people to change their ways, send them into slavery to get them to change their ways. But if he knew that this was going to happen, he deliberately allowed it to happen. And either that or he just didn't know. The way it's written, it doesn't seem like he knew. Okay, so other times where God doesn't seem to be omniscient. The story of Job, where God throws Job, an innocent and perfect man, pretty much, blameless, God even says he is, throws him under the bus when inciting Satan to mess with him. And all this is in service of, hey, you know what? We want to see if Job will deny me or if Job will curse my name by going through all this stuff. But if God knows everything, he already knew that Job wasn't going to do that. And he doesn't act like this at all throughout the entire story. Abraham and Isaac. God tests Abraham's faith by telling him, hey, you know what? I know child sacrifice is bad and we genocide other nations because they do child sacrifice, but I want to make sure that you'll do child sacrifice if I tell you to do it, which is crazy as it in itself. But if God knows everything, he knows Abraham is more than willing to sacrifice his son if the right God tells him to do it. If Yahweh tells him to do it, he'll do it. He's got the knife, he's got the wood for the fire, and he's got his traumatized, naked son that he'll drag up to the top of that mountain. God should have known that he would do that. And I mean, a little bit more ethical of a situation for the Bible would be, God knew that Abraham would literally do anything, including sacrifice his own son, for God. So therefore, God decided to give Abraham this covenant and make a covenant with Abraham, rather than traumatize both Abraham and his son and make a pretty horrible example, a horrible ethical and moral example to the rest of the world by showing like, hey, the child sacrifice thing, that's not really so bad. What is bad is when you do a child sacrifice to the wrong God. That's what's bad. It's not objectively morally wrong to sacrifice your child because the God of Abraham can tell you to do it and you better be ready to do it. Another crazy thing Christians kind of just gloss over. I can't even really say that they believe it because it's just not a thing that's really thought about. It's just totally swept under the rug. So rant over. Let's continue.
Say, yes, God's omniscient. And I ask, where is the word omniscient in the Bible? And they say, oh, I didn't realize it wasn't in there. Well, I said, you believe God is omnipresent? And they go, yes, where I go up to heaven, you're there. To bed in the depths of the deep, you're there. Yes, but the word omnipresent isn't in the Bible. Why?
Omnipresence, that's another thing. If God is omnipresent, that means when Eve was eating the apple, God was right there, literally in her presence, and he just watched it happen. And then a few minutes later, he pretends that he didn't know, which is super weird and creepy. Very few places other than the verse that Mike Winger vaguely referenced just then, where it says you're in the depths and you're in the heavens. There doesn't seem to be any assumption in the writing of the Bible that God is literally everywhere. It's just not really written that way. If you disagree, and you can point to many different places where people behave as though and speak in the Bible as though God is literally right with them, and and not just a being, an ascendant being in some other plane of existence most of the time when he's not walking around on human-like feet and appearing to Moses or walking around in the cool of the afternoon in the Garden of Eden. Most of the time, it just seems like God is just really not around unless he shows up or unless an angel of the Lord shows up. It's another one of those things that people just decided that they believe, that God is all places at all times. And it doesn't really bear out in the scripture as far as my perception of it and my interpretation of it goes.
Why do you believe things that aren't in the Bible? To which now they will be the one telling you, well, the teaching of omnipresence and omniscience, it's in the Bible. We just have a word to describe the teaching. And I tell them, bingo.
You see, he turns the tables on people like this, and this is a common apologetic technique, using wordplay where you're talking about, okay, this particular word is not in the Bible. That's not really the question. It's where are you getting this ideology? Where are you getting this concept? What people typically say, and what many scholars agree on, is that the concept of the Trinity, not the word Trinity, that's stupid. The concept of the Trinity does not exist in the Old Testament. That was not the way that they were taught to see God. In fact, there are plenty of places in the Old Testament scriptures where God says, I am not a man. Numbers 23:19. God is not a man that he should lie, neither the son of man that he should repent. That's pretty straightforward. When it comes to the Trinity, anyway, I don't know if you could say that God doesn't lie when he explicitly instructs a lying spirit to go down and convince somebody to get themselves killed. It's kind of off to me. It just doesn't sound right. I mean, if you are the architect of a plot to have someone lied to in order to get them killed, I think that makes you a liar. So we're just going to skip that right now, though, because we're talking about the Trinity concept stuff. Job 9:32. This is kind of an obscure one, but Job acknowledges about God, for he is not a man as I am, that I might answer him, that we should come to trial together. God is not a man. Old Testament, again. In summation, this is another one of those just tricksy, sleight of hand type of apologetics techniques that really rub me the wrong way. I mean, Mike Winger seems like a pretty smart guy, and I would hesitate to assume he's accidentally confusing the concept being in the Bible versus the word being in the Bible. I don't know why I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, but I kind of do. But it's just too skillfully employed, the technique of switching things around behind the scenes. The thing that makes me really disturbed by this is the knowledge, and he knows this, I know it. Many apologists and many atheists pick up on this. People want to be told that they're right. People want to be told that their existing worldview and the way that they approach problems and life scenarios, choices, crossroads, they want to be told that it's already good. It's already at least on the right track. They don't have to drop everything and relearn a whole new system. They don't have to undo the programming that they've already undergone in life. They just got to keep going and keep learning along the same path. And I definitely understand the appeal of that because it's easy, it's comfortable, and the alternative is scary and painful. Having to basically start over from zero is not what people typically want to do with their life. And that is what you have to do if you really look at this stuff and break it down into its basic building blocks and realize, yeah, this really doesn't make as much sense as I was led to believe. So Mike Winger knows all the people that watch his channel, all they really want to do is be told, hey, you and me, we're right. We don't have to really worry about rethinking the way we see the world. And you know what? Boom, 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 boom. Here's a bunch of proof that you can vaguely rely on. Just let it go in one ear, out the other. Just let it flow over you. Don't look into the verses. Don't worry about all that. Don't think too hard, because I'm going to switch things around on you just to smooth it over. But anyway, I hope you guys learned something from this, or I learned a little bit from it myself, and I got some more insight on Mike Winger's techniques and how he seems to see his audience. So if you got anything from this video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. And join me on this interesting journey of deconstruction and analysis of apologetics techniques, responses to what I believe are these harmful, in the end, they're very harmful ideas that do divide people and cause people a lot of suffering in the world. Obviously, not all religion is bad and not all religious people are bad. I know plenty of people. Almost my entire family are religious people, and they're great people, in my opinion. But these mindsets can, even within the mind of a great and wonderful, beautiful person, it can lead to stifling. It can lead to oppression. It can lead to depression and mistreating other people, even people you love. So that's why I talk about these types of things online. Like I said, if you got anything from it, like and subscribe. And I hope to see you again soon on my channel. If you agree, disagree, you got something to say, comment, question, concerns, drop it down in the comments section below, and I'll check it out and respond if I really feel that there's something substantial there to respond to. But yeah, until next time, my friends, I'm Stan Gray, and this has been TRQ, The Right Questions. And remember, if you want the truth, you've got to ask the right questions. I'll see you later.